Hello everyone, this is Hoda Ganji and this is the third video of the Dynamo and Revit interaction series. In this video we are working with a curtain wall and we are going to design some vertical shadings and we are trying to relate the dimension of the shading to the location of a hypothetical sun. So by the end of today we're going to have something like this. So if you want to create a pattern like this, now that we have a curtain wall in Revit, I want to select that curtain wall inside Revit and I want to get that dimensions, get the boundaries and use that boundaries at the origin points for the cubes that I'm going to create in Dynamo. So let's start by a new Dynamo file. My Revit file is set on meters. You can double check by going to UN. This is on meters. So as we talked about, if I go to the Revit tab and if I go to selection, let's say the first step is to select the curtain panels, right? So the glazing parts, and then I want to get the boundaries so I get the location of them. Okay, I want to go to the selection tab, all elements of family type. The family type that I'm looking for is the system panel glazed. And if I connect this, you see we have 17 elements. You see the IDs there. These elements are the actual glass panels, which are these, inside the curtain wall, and it seems that we have 17 of them. Okay, next I want to get the boundaries of these elements, these 17 elements, so I get the exact location to work with in Dynamo. Okay, so how about I go to the Revit tab. This time I'm going to elements, I'm going to curtain panel and boundaries. So this will give me the rectangle which is around each and every of the glass panels. So boundaries, if I connect the elements to the curtain panel and if I also pin this here, you see that now I can see the boundaries, not the panels but just the boundaries inside Dynamo. This is very helpful because next I can get the origin points of these panels and I can start my shading in regard to those origin points. So this is giving me a polycurve, right? Now I want to get the origin point of that polycurve. For this matter, I want to go to geometry, not Revit, but now that I have curve, I can use other tabs of Dynamo. So I'm going to go to the geometry, curves, curve again, and if I scroll down, what I'm interested to know is the start point of the panels. Actually, the start point of the polycurves, which in this case they are the boundary of each glass panel. So if I connect this polycurve to curve and I pin this in here, you see I have 17 points. And you see Dynamo shows the points in here. So this is where each of the panels start. If it helps, feel free to go with show labels. If you click the box for show labels, it's going to also name them for you so it's easier to follow them. Okay, now what I'm interested to do is to create a set of maybe cubes starting from these origin points and going up to this level. Okay, so this part you know already. If I go to geometry, solids, we have an option for cuboid here, and we have an option to create one cuboid using the origin points as well as width, length, and height. I want to go with that one. The origin point are the points that I got from the boundaries of the curtain panels of the curtain wall in Revit. I want to assign points to point or points to origin. And if I also pin this one, you see I have 17 elements here. I have 17 cuboids. For now, all of them have a width, a length, and a height of 1. I want to change the height to the same height as the curtain panel, and then I want to work with the width and length. How about I unpin these elements so I have more room here? To summarize what we did so far, we just got the curtain panels from Revit, we got the boundary of the curtain panels, and then we got the start point of the curtain panels. How about I group this part, these 4 nodes, and I want to name them as the cuboid origins, right? Because this is where I start that cuboid. Okay. Now you can use some number slider or code block to assign some values to the width, the length, or the height, right? But I'm not going to do that. What I'm interested to do is to relate the height to the actual height of the curtain panel. For this matter, as you remember, if I go to Revit, selection, and I want to select the model, select model element. I want to just select this curtain wall from my Revit file. Okay, and you see the curtain wall is selected. There is an ID here. If you want to double check, you can select your curtain wall in Revit, go to the Manage tab here, and go to IDs of selection, and you see this number is the same number that Dynamo is referring to. Okay, so I have this element now, which is the curtain wall. I want to get the height of that and assign that height to the height of the cuboids, right? So as we talked about, if I go to the Revit tab, if I go to elements and then to element again, there is an option which is very useful to get parameter value by name. So the element that I'm interested to know more about is the curtain wall itself. The parameter name, as we mentioned, it needs to be a string or a set of letters, right? So I'm going to type a string, grab a string here, and assign it here. And you see this is still empty because the string is empty. If I say height, let's see what happens. I'm going to type height here. It's not giving me anything yet. This is still empty. The reason is, as I mentioned, the name of the string should be the exact same name that shows in the Revit properties menu. So if I go to the properties of the curtain wall, you see the height is actually related to level 2, and the height is reading from here, and it says unconnected height. So if I go to Dynamo and instead of height I mention unconnected height, which is the exact same name in the properties menu, it shows 4. So it's reading the information from your Revit file, which is 4 in here as well. Okay, so I have the same height. The good thing is that if I change the dimension of the levels, for instance, if I go by 3.8 for the level, it's gonna also change that number in here. So now we are also relating our Dynamo file to our Revit file, and it's gonna update based on the changes that you do to your Revit model. Okay, how about I assign this value to the height? So what happens is that the height of the cuboids are exactly 4, but they're a little bit lower than the surface that we are looking for, because the origin of them is actually the middle of the cuboid. So I just want to move these objects, the cuboids, by half that height, right? If you remember, I can type move here, and Dynamo knows move as translate. I can grab the translate item. I want to translate the cuboids in the Z direction. They're gonna move up by half of this height. So I need to divide the height by a value of 2 and assign it to the amount of translation in the Z direction. And now if I hide this one, you see they are moved up. I also want to make some changes to the width and length. For now, let me just hide the translated geometry and go with this one, and then I'm gonna reverse this. Okay, it's not so bad. Now we have a set of shading. The size of them is not very reasonable yet because it's 1 meter by 1 meter by the height, which is 4 meters. You can change the width and height by going, for instance, a code block or something. If I assign it to the width and length, now the values are going to be different. Okay, now I want to get close to this pattern. Let's say, for instance, I have the sun somewhere around here, and I want the panels to get larger as I get like away from the sun or close to the sun. Okay, so how about I get one hypothetical point as where the sun would go, and I'm gonna use that as an attractor point. I want to type point by coordinates is good. And how about I assign some values to the Z of the point. You see this point is now created here in Dynamo and over there in Revit. How about I move the Z value by about like 50, some hypothetical value to show where the sun would go. Maybe 50 is too much. 20, and let's say it's also going in that direction, which is my Y. So I want to assign some negative values to my Y, so the sun is going to move that way, right? Or it can go even further. So let's say, for instance, the sun is over there. I want to relate the size of shading to the sun. How about I group these three, name them as attractor point. You can also go with one arc to show the exact sun path. You can go with 3 dots to create a sun path, and that would be related not to just one single time of the sun path, but to the whole sun path. Okay. What I want to do is to get the distance between the origin points of the cuboid. Okay, and I want to get the distance from that origin to the attractor point and relate the width or length of the cuboid to the distance between the origin of the cuboid and the attractor. For this, I can go with distance, get distance to. The two geometries that I'm interested to know the distance is the point coming out of cuboid origins and the point which is the hypothetical sun location. When you do that, it's going to give you 17 values because we have 17 values for that origin point. How about I group these as the curtain wall, okay, and I can group these two as the height, so it's gonna be the cuboid height okay. So I got that distance, and I want to assign this distance maybe to the width. Let's see how it works. So you see now they're too big. As mentioned before, when some dimension is too big, you can simply divide it by a value which is larger than 1, maybe 10 or 20, assign it to y, and then assign this to the width, right? How about I move this a little bit to this side? This can go over there. Okay, so and then if I increase this number, it's gonna decrease that width, right? For now, you see the length is fixed on a number which is 0.5 because the Revit is on meters. This means that this value is 50 centimeters. How about I go with like 0.25 or 25 centimeters for this edge of the cuboid, and when you think it's good enough, you can just turn the preview of this one off and turn on the other one. Okay, now we have a set of cuboids, and we have related the dimension to one hypothetical point in Revit as for the location of the sun. If I go to level 1, you see the shadings here. Last step would be to import the objects actually back to Revit. So when you are happy with your Dynamo file and dimensions, you can go with import. You can type import. I want to go with import geometries, and as we talked about, if you check this node, it has 17 elements in them. I want to flatten this list, so it's gonna be imported into Revit as one single element. Okay, so I want to flatten this list. For more information about this, you also need to check the other playlist named as Parametric Design in Dynamo Revit. If I assign this geometry to this list, you see in the first one, there are lists within the lists, right? But in this one, there is only one list. So if I import this one, it's gonna be imported as one single element, and it would be easier to assign material and everything in Revit. I'm gonna put this on manual before doing the last part, and I want to save this Dynamo file. Now I want to connect it, and because this is on manual, I need to run it. I can save the file, close it, and if I go to Revit, You see the elements, the shadings are in here. How about I put this unshaded? Okay, so now I have the curtain walls in Revit. I have some shadings which are related to the location of the sun. If I go to Manage tab, to Object Styles, which is here, and I go to Imported Objects, you see all of them are imported here. If I change the material of that shading from here, okay, you're gonna see that the material also changes here. How about I group these as length?